I'm Femi Okay.
I'm Malika Bilal, and you're in the stream.
Is there a solution to gun violence in the United States? We talked to members of a non-profit organization that believes it has the answer.
And we want to hear your thoughts. Tweet us or leave your comments in the live YouTube chat, and you too could be in the stream.
Hi, I'm Chandra Bazelko. I write the award-winning blog Prison Diaries, and you are in the stream.
This year, the U.S. city of Chicago has been the scene of nearly 2,800 shootings, a statistic that stands as a sobering reminder of a cycle of violence that shows no signs of stopping. But organizers of Green ReEntry subscribe to the belief that nothing stops a bullet like a job, and say to end the cycle of violence, you must eradicate the forces that diminish the humanity of young people.
This building is run down, it's dilapidated, boarded up, an eyesore, and probably nobody in the community wants it. This is why the Green ReEntry program is so important, because this is the way returning citizens are looked at. Dilapidated, run down, not loved, don't nobody want it, and want to go anywhere but there. I joined the man 8 months ago, after doing 20 years, 6 months in prison. Our brother Rami, he likes to talk about this being a second chance, but for some of us, it's our first chance. And as a result of getting the behavioral help I needed, getting life skills training, now I'm a emerging leader in the man.
So what happens when violence is treated like a community health crisis instead of a crime issue?
Well, joining us to talk about this in San Francisco, California, Rami Nashashibi. He's the executive director of the Inner City Muslim Action Network in Chicago, or IMAN. Joining us on set, Billy Moore, case manager for the Green ReEntry program, and Leonard McInnes, a member of that program. Welcome everyone to the stream.
Thank you for having me.
It's good to have you here. Our brother Rami, I want to show you something here. A couple of tabs on my laptop. One is a gun violence archive, and you can see the number of injuries from gun violence in 2018. Another one is from the Chicago Tribune, 50 of the most recent victims in 2018 of shootings. Another story here, 2018 was a record year for school gun violence. This is how we normally talk about gun violence in the United States. Statistics and deaths, and not much positivity, but you are kind of flipping the script on this. When you see those stats, what do you see?
Well, you know, there's no doubt that the scourge of gun violence in the United States is something that affects all communities, irrespective of socioeconomic background, urban, geography, whether it's urban or rural. Clearly, an organization like ours is one that has been focusing on this issue in inner city urban communities like Chicago. And when we look at the problem of gun violence or violence more broadly in Chicago, I think what we try to do is to deal with some of the very root causes that historically undergird that violence, that in fact provide us with an opportunity to demonstrate that it can be solved. Mm-hmm. Jobs, opportunities, infrastructure, capacity. These are real solutions that create real alternatives for violence, and we've seen that work.
Yeah, one of the things that doesn't get addressed and overlooked is the trauma that people are suffering in our communities due to the fact that they live in these areas that they're self-isolated in. A lot of our young men come to us and they just want that change because it's an outlet for them to get away from the things that they're around all day, every day. The blocks are hot. So we provide basically a sanctuary, and we're addressing the whole person through behavioral health therapy, essential life skills. When we talk about transforming the thinking of these young men, we stand in front of them also as men who have made mistakes in their lives and have changed it, turned it around, and we just show them how. My biggest challenge is try to fast forward a young man's thinking to where I'm at right now so that he don't make the mistakes that I made as a youth. And it's hard because the only thing they're exposed to is what they know, what they come from. But we provide that environment that builds them up. Iman is unapologetic about its spiritual base as well, and we feed the soul of these young men as well as their knowledge and the trades, which We have 3 trades that we teach these guys in construction: electrical, HVAC, and carpentry. And we're gentrifying our own community as well as our own youth.
You know, Billy, you mentioned hoping to teach young people what to turn away from now that you have the wisdom and you can look back and show them. I wanted to bring up this tweet we got from a pastor in Chicago, actually, and Leonard, I'll give you this one to you. Pastor Donovan Price writes in, he says, "The individuals I am honored to work with are affected in ways that people could never imagine, deeper and more far-reaching into their existence than whoever thought it okay to discharge a firearm could have hoped." So when he talks about the ways that people are affected, explain to our international audience, what is that like? What is it like to be a young black man in Chicago?
It's hard because it's a lack of opportunity. It's a lack of resources. So when I got presented with an opportunity like Iman, it was like I didn't really believe it at first, because coming in, it's all gas from that walk of life. You feel me? So it's like all us got this persona that we trying to uphill, and then when we come into space, like okay, when I started the program, I came into the space with a bunch of guys that I didn't know. I didn't know from a can of paint. So it was tension in the room. All us from different sides of the city. You don't know who. You don't know if you're gonna be the next one or what. But all of our intentions are here we're here to better ourselves. So once I start actually buying into the program and I actually seen because I want only to come in there for just a trade. It opened my mind they helped me be a better man. That's what I feel like. I feel like they helped me be a better man. With the cognitive thinking, how they let you know, when they let me know that your thoughts gonna control how you feel, and that's gonna ultimately control your actions. And when we, as black men, only emotion we know how to really express is anger. Because we conditioned to only express when we mad. We ain't when you cry and you little, when you're a young man growing up, that's a emotion that gets suppressed. So coming up, when we become men, we don't know how to deal with hurt or pain. We explode in ways that we shouldn't. So me having the opportunity to be around guys that did 20 years or guys that did 30 years that kind of messed up their life, and they actually being there to reflect with me and listen to me and understand my problems and help me work those out, it was like, it's a real jewel, you know what I'm saying? Because it's easy for someone to just lead you in the wrong way, you know what I'm saying? Give you drugs or give you a gun. It's easy to do that. So when I started actually understanding the whole concept, it wasn't just about me learning electricity or me learning how to be an electrician. It wasn't just about that. It was more. It was health, wellness. They cared more than I thought. So that's when I actually felt that and I understood that they cared way more than I understood. I put my all into it, because coming where I'm coming from, it's not a lot of opportunity.
I want to play something to you. It's something that I've seen a lot, and it's played every time people talk about gun violence and how do we stop gun violence. And this was one reason and one example of maybe how we might stop it. Have a look and have a listen.
2 decades ago, the gun lobby pressured Congress to pass the Dickey Amendment, effectively stopping the Center for Disease Control and Prevention from conducting the public health research that we know will save lives. This lack of a public investment in gun safety research has left us woefully ignorant about many aspects of gun violence in the United States and the most effective interventions to reduce gun deaths. Even the original author of this restriction, former Representative Jay Dickey, has publicly changed his mind about the amendment that bears his name and urged Congress to resume public health research on gun violence.
Rami, there doesn't seem to be that bigger appetite in the US to actually research gun violence in a way that you might be able to work out, how do we stop this? How do we reduce the amount of shootings? How do we reduce the number of deaths? Is that changing?
I think, there is an increasing realization that if we don't modify and come and push simple, common sense gun laws in communities, whether it's urban communities or whether it's in rural or suburban communities across America, we're going to continue to see the horrific carnage that unfortunately has, been on our, TV screens throughout the year. So I do think you're beginning to see an increasing realization, bipartisan realization, that something must change. Meanwhile, I do think that, again, the types of violence and the types of problems associated with violence go way beyond simple gun laws in urban communities, for instance. It's about investment. It's about commitment to real opportunities for communities that are under extraordinary stress and have been criminally disinvested in for decades.
Billy, you've got case manager on your shirt. So I know you're a case manager at Green ReEntry, and I'm just going to show people a couple of pictures of you. This is an amazing selfie. I don't know how you got these many people in one shot. Kudos to you. And then another group picture. Let me see if I can find you. There you go, right there. When we're looking at tackling gun violence as a health issue, what is it that you are doing?
Well, it's a disease that's plaguing our community. And if you don't approach it in that sense, then you really don't understand how to cure it. We have to get out in the community and get in front of it. We have to wrap our arms around these young men who are basically without hope. You show me a young man with a gun, I show you a young man without hope. So if we can pull these young men into programs like Iman, which will help address the systemic issues that these young men are dealing with. When I talked about trauma, these young men have been brought up, like Lenard said, with only understanding how to express anger. They don't have a healthy resource of an upbringing. Some of these young men don't have fathers or a positive male role model that they had to look up to. Was raised by a single mother who basically had to work, to provide for her family. The one unique thing about Iman and our Green ReEntry program is that we have an intergenerational cohort. And what that is that we bring in older men who've done a substantial amount of time in prison, and we put them together with younger men who's basically dealing with these issues of trying to find out who they are. They're trying to understand themselves by being inundated with the things that's going on in the community that dictate this is what a man is about. And those are the ones that's pulling triggers. So putting these guys together helps serve a purpose for the older guy who did all this time in prison, didn't have the opportunity of raising his own kids, and he missed out on that. And these young men actually seeing older guys who have made mistakes and lived the life that they're living now so that they can learn from them. That's one way of dealing with it, just having the opportunity to get guys like myself to get in the lives and intercede in the lives of young men, and having a space to bring these young men in that they now have hope other than just the gun.
And it's interesting because what I'm seeing from people online is that the opposite of hope is then returning to those same streets and that same life. I wanted to bring in a comment we got from the research director at the John Jay College of Criminal Justice, and he talks about that word recidivism, the cycle that will have people leave jail, leave prison, and then return to it. Have a listen to what he told the stream.
Recidivism is what researchers sometimes use to measure the chances a person involved in the criminal justice system will be involved again after a new crime. But we don't always know if people have committed new crimes, only when they are caught committing new crimes. If a person is rearrested or reconvicted or even reincarcerated, we say they've recidivated. But recidivism is a combination measure. It captures both individuals' behavior as well as the intensity of effort by police and the courts to stop that behavior. If a person comes from a neighborhood that's under intense police surveillance, their chances of being a recidivist will be higher than people coming from a different neighborhood that has less police surveillance.
So that idea of communities under surveillance will, those rates will go up. Keep that in mind as I read this tweet here. This is from Katie. She says, we need to teach marketable skills for careers that will hire them. When I worked at a jail, many that came back said the same things. I was hungry, I needed to pay my bills. No one would hire me, so I had to steal, prostitute, etc. They didn't want to, but they felt forced to for survival. Rami, I'll give this one to you. Taking into account what you heard in that video comment earlier, talk to us about that cycle, the recidivism cycle.
Yeah, let me give you a real specific statistic that we found in the state of Illinois. And in fact, we helped to introduce legislation with churches and community organizations to begin to address this, that the recidivism rate, for instance, in 2015 and 16, over 85% of those who were recidivating, going back to prison, were doing so on technical parole violations. What that meant was, and that could be anything from someone who was coming home, trying their best to re-enter, to get into a job, and stopped by the police in communities that disproportionately have police presence and are stopping people at traffic stops, stopping people just walking down the street. Oftentimes, the parole violation could be as simple as being in the presence of others who are on parole. That was actually a law on the books and was able to be a cause for then reincarceration. And what that does, of course, is just continue to increase the 50% recidivism rate, especially for individuals who are back within the first 14 months. What we have fought back against is both legislatively trying to reduce the barriers for reentry by changing some of those laws, and we were successful in doing so in the state of Illinois, modifying that through grassroots coalitions and campaigns. And as Katie was saying on that tweet, beginning to provide real, not only marketable skills, but pressure with the private industry that we all must be invested in this issue. It cannot simply be community organizations pushing the cause of trying to find employment. Private industry, government, universities, and private citizens must, whether they live in communities that are affected by this issue or not. We are often living in urban centers that have these type of neighborhoods in them, and we all must see ourselves as collectively invested in trying to create equity across the board. So that's something that we have found successful in reducing the recidivism rate in our program, and we've seen the positive impact that can have on certain blocks in our neighborhoods.
Leonard, do you mind if I ask you a couple of personal questions?
Go ahead.
Excellent. All right, so here we have you on my laptop. We see you in pottery class. What's going on here? I don't see the pottery that you've made, I have to say. It's hidden, conveniently.
It's like, it's a therapeutic thing that we got at the
right.
at Green ReEntry.
If I remember from school, it's a coil pot, so you make these little wriggly things and then you
roll it.
do the thumbs up the side, etc., etc., etc. Nicely done. But would you say that you are a success story of this kind of approach to gun violence, to help stop young people from getting sucked in?
I would say, yeah, I would. Because I've been shot, I've been stabbed, all these things have happened to me, and I could have.
Do you want to slow down a little bit? Because some of our international audience will not know what that experience has been like. So you've been shot how many times?
I've been shot on 2 separate occasions.
Okay.
I've been stabbed.
Yep.
All that, but
have you stabbed or shot anybody else?
No.
Okay, so you've just been the victim of it. Okay.
Yeah, I've been victim of it.
Okay.
But me being a part of the Green ReEntry, it made me not want to feed those needs. Mm-hmm. When I got shot, we got this model called one chain, one link. Mm-hmm. So if a guy falls short, one of us got to help him pick him up. So when I got shot, I was very discouraged. I ain't want to bring that energy in there because I know that's my positive space while I was, while I was progressing. Mm-hmm. So when I got shot, it was like I had to use all the jewels that these guys gave me, So it was like I gotta get past this. I can't perpetuate the cycle because if I feed into any negativity, I'm part of the problem.
Right. So they're giving you coping tools to manage it. So
yeah.
Okay, got it. Malika.
When you think of those coping tools, we actually got several tweets from around the world. So in Kenya, one person talks about the stigmatization of reformed offenders in their country. We also got tweets coming to us from Uganda and other places of people saying, we are actually looking at Chicago as a model for how to do things. Billy, do you think this is something that's scalable, that can be scaled up for other cities around the world?
Absolutely. And the reason why I say that, because I'm gonna just share a little bit of my story. When I was 16 years old, I had this thinking that carrying a gun was the right thing to do, which was totally wrong for a 16-year-old to be carrying a gun. When you carry a gun, you get gun problems. Unfortunately, I had a confrontation at the time with the best basketball player to come out of Chicago, high school basketball player by the name of Ben Wilson. As a result of that confrontation, I shot Benji and he died. I went away for 20 years of my life. It was a confrontation, it was a mistake. It was something that shouldn't have happened. It was senseless. So when I talk to these young men, I understand the position that you can be put in when you're carrying guns. I also understand what that cycle of retaliation is about, why it's not good, because you'll never solve this problem. I was fortunate enough to have a son who, the day that I started working for Iman, I had to bury him. He was shot 16 times. The only thing that I wanted the world to understand was that I made a mistake. And I was sorry for what I had done. I understood the impact that I had caused, not just Benji's family, but the whole entire city of Chicago, because Benji represented a dream that most people probably would never have the opportunity to ever live out. And when he died, that dream was affected by, the entire city. Like Rami said, he was the ticket that I took away. And it was a mistake. So when my son was killed, I had to look inside of myself and be willing to also extend forgiveness to the young men who hadn't even asked to be forgiven because they hadn't even been arrested, even to this day.
Billy, thank you for sharing that story. And our heart goes out to the victims, Benji's family, and of course also to your son and to your family. I wanted to share a comment we got from the former Chicago Public Schools CEO and the U.S. Secretary of Education, formerly, Arne Duncan. Take a look at my screen here. You'll see how these two men are related. Arne Duncan knows you, Billy, and you all have worked together. Here's a comment from Arne.
Iman has just been an extraordinary partner in their decades-long commitment to rebuilding community, with community, through community, with community genius, with community input, with the residents who so many others would like to throw away or forget, is remarkable. I think it's a model not just for Chicago, it's a model for the country and internationally, and what they're doing to create life, to create hope, to create a sense of possibility is absolute genius.
Really, it's an extraordinary story. It's extraordinary work that you're doing right now. What's the message you want to leave the world with?
Reconciliation. We have to find a way to institute restorative justice on a very basic and minute level. We can't wait, like for my situation, 34 years to have men stand in front of the world to reconcile the death of someone and to be asked to be forgiven. We got to start with kids in a schoolyard that's having fights and make them accountable, make them understand the value in reconciling their differences, understanding how to resolve conflict without it becoming a violent ending like a death. And that's something that we almost take accountability for.
Really, I feel like I've been in one of your classes, one of the talks with the young men. I was like, and now I've got the full Billy experience. Thank you so much, Billy, Leonard, Rami, for bringing your experience and your insight to us, because so often we talk about mass shootings and gun violence, and with little hope, and you bring us a great deal of hope. Malika.
I'll end with this tweet from South Africa. They write in, great story, watching all the way from South Africa. Our African people need healing and opportunities to become who we really are. Thanks for that comment.
Thank you so much for watching the show. It is at the end, but Malika and I will always see you online. Take care, everybody.